So we will see overview of the immune system. The immune system is a remarkably versatile defense system that has evolved to protect animals from invading pathogenic microorganisms and cancer. It is able to generate an enormous variety of cells and molecules capable of specifically recognizing and eliminating an apparently limitless variety of foreign invaders. These cells and molecules act together in a dynamic network whose complexity rivals that of the nervous system. Functionally, an immune response can be divided into two related activities: recognition and response. Immune recognition is remarkable for its specificity. The immune system is able to recognize subtle chemical differences that distinguish one foreign pathogen from another. Furthermore, the system is able to discriminate between foreign molecules and the body's own cells and proteins. Once a foreign organism has been recognized, the immune system recruits a variety of cells and molecules to mount an appropriate response called an effector response to eliminate or neutralize the organism. In this way, the system is able to convert the initial recognition event into a variety of effector responses, each uniquely suited for eliminating a particular type of pathogen. Later exposure to the same foreign organism induces a memory response, characterized by a more rapid and heightened immune reaction that serves to eliminate the pathogen and prevent disease. This chapter introduces the study of immunology from an historical perspective and presents a broad overview of the cells and molecules that compose the immune system, along with the mechanisms they use to protect the body against foreign invaders. Evidence for the presence of very simple immune systems in certain invertebrate organisms then gives an evolutionary perspective on the mammalian immune system, which is the major subject of this book. Elements of the primitive immune system persist in vertebrates as innate immunity, along with a more highly evolved system of specific response termed adaptive immunity. These two systems work in concert to provide a high degree of protection for vertebrate species. Finally, in some circumstances, the immune system fails to act as protector because of some deficiency in its components. At other times, it becomes an aggressor and turns in its awesome powers against its own host. In this introductory chapter, our description of immunity is simplified to reveal the essential structures and function of the immune system. Substantive discussions, experimental approaches, and in-depth definition are left to the chapters that follow. Like the later chapters covering basic topics in immunology, this one includes a section called Clinical Focus that describes human disease and its relation to immunity. These sections investigate the causes, consequences, and treatments of diseases rooted in impaired or hyperactive immune function. Okay, so in this chapter, historical perspective, innate immunity, adaptive immunity, comparative immunity, immune dysfunction, and its consequences are will be covered. Okay, so first, that is historical perspective. The discipline of immunology grew out of the observation that individuals who had recovered from certain infectious diseases were thereafter protected from the disease. The term, the Latin term immunis, meaning exempt, is the source of the English word immunity, meaning the state of protection from infectious disease. Perhaps the earlier written references to the phenomenon of immunity can be traced back to Thucydides, the great historian of the Peloponnesian War. In describing a plague in Athens, He wrote in 430 BC that only those who had recovered from the plague could nurse the sick because they would not contact the disease a second time. Although Although early societies recognized the phenomenon of immunity, almost 2000 years passed before the concept was successfully converted into medical, medically effective practice. The first recorded attempts to induce immunity deliberately were performed by the Chinese and Turks in the 15th century. Various reports suggest that the dried crust derived from smallpox pustules were either inhaled into the nostrils or inserted into some cuts in the skin, a technique called variolation. In 1718, Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, the wife of the British ambassador to Constantinople, observed the positive effects of variolation on the native population and had the technique performed on her own children. The method was significantly improved by the English physician Edward Jenner in 1798. Intrigued by the fact that milkmaids who had contracted the mild disease cowpox were subsequently immune to smallpox, which is disfiguring and often fatal disease. Jenner reasoned that introducing fluid from a cowpox pustule into people, that is inoculation, might protect them from smallpox. To test this idea, he inoculated an 8-year-old boy with fluid from a cowpox pustule and later intentionally infected the child with smallpox. As predicted, the child did not develop smallpox. Jenner's technique of inoculating with cowpox to protect against smallpox spread quickly throughout the Europe. However, for many reasons, including a lack of obvious disease targets and knowledge of their causes, it was nearly 100 years before this technique was applied to other diseases. As so often happens in science, serendipity in combination with astute observation led to the next major advance in immunology, the induction of immunity to cholera. Louis Pasteur had succeeded in growing the bacterium thought to cause fall cholera in culture and then had shown that chickens injected with the cultured bacterium developed cholera. After returning from a summer vacation, he injected some chickens with an old culture. The chickens became ill, but to Pasteur's surprise, they recovered. Pasteur then grew a fresh culture of the bacterium with the intention of injecting it into some fresh chickens. But as the story goes, his supply of chickens was limited and therefore he used the previously injected chickens. Again, to his surprise, the chickens were completely protected from the disease. Pasteur hypothesized that proved that aging had weakened the virus virulence of the pathogen and that such an attenuated strain might be administered to protect against the disease. He called this attenuated strain a vaccine, which is taken from the Latin word vacca, meaning cow, in honor of Jenner's work with cowpox inoculation. Pasteur extended these findings to other diseases, demonstrating that it was possible to attenuate or weaken a pathogen and administer the attenuated strain as a vaccine. In a now classic experiment at Pauli's Le Fort in 1881, Pasteur first vaccinated one group of sheep with heat attenuated anthrax bacillus, that is Bacillus anthracis. He then challenged the vaccinated sheep and some unvaccinated sheep with a virulent culture of the bacillus. All the vaccinated sheep lived and all the unvaccinated animals died. These experiments marked the beginning of the discipline of immunology. In 1885, Pasteur administered his first vaccine to a human, a young boy who had been bitten repeatedly by a rabid dog, which is shown in this figure. The boy, Joseph Mister, who inoculated with a series of attenuated rabies virus preparations. He lived and later became a custodian at the Pasteur Institute.